This episode is about how we create strategic elements for our clients that we sell for sometimes $20,000 or more without ever even needing to pick up a camera. And later as well, I'll show you the exact tool that I use for this in every single engagement. And the key to all of this is about becoming invaluable to your client, being unfireable, having so much knowledge and so much value for your clients that you continue working with them for many more years than you would otherwise. Welcome back to the Video Strategy Podcast, where we share our lived experiences in the field, scaling our own video agencies, and also the experiences that we've had over the last 8+ years of helping hundreds of other video business owners. I'm Jackson Kingsley, and over the past 13 years, I've been working in the industry, and I've helped other video business owners generate more than $20 million in revenue. And I'm here with Will Smith.
Hi guys, nice to have you here. So I spent the last couple of decades being an award-winning cinematographer for brands like National Geographic. And then the last few years, I've shifted to video strategy, which has helped me land much bigger deals, do the work with the clients in my dreams, and have much more time and money.
The core of all of this, the key philosophy, is about creating things that are high perceived value to the client, but low cost to you. And this is actually quite counterintuitive for video agency owners because the core thing that we often deliver is video. It's production, it's post-production, it's all of that, which is extremely high cost to produce, which is why so many video agencies end up with very small margins. But the thinking here is that as a video business, that's our core offering, so that's the thing that we need to charge for. Whereas in reality, there are lots of other things that we can include in our pricing models that make us more profitable, but give a ton of value to the client.
So, okay, $20,000 without picking up a camera. How is that possible?
So let me give you an example. So there was a client that I worked with. The first time that I really embraced this approach was after reading Blair Enns' book, Win Without Pitching, many years ago. And I then started to think about what are the things that I can incorporate into my offering that will help the client get results. The first and most important shift, and this is something that we talked about a bit in previous episodes as well, was making sure that I wasn't giving my creative ideas away for free up front. And that's the biggest temptation. One of the things that most people struggle with is that you go into a meeting, that initial conversation with a client, you start talking about video, and then immediately you're just giving away all your ideas and putting them on the table. And the issue there is that you're immediately commoditizing yourself. And then the client has a ton of stuff that they can work with, and then they can go away, price shop, find someone else to do it cheaper, or try and do it themselves. This has happened to me a ton. I'm sure it's happened to you as well, Will. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it can be rough. I had somebody a couple of years ago who actually took my ideas and then just started generating AI video with it. So basically, I gave him all my ideas for free, and he just went off and did it himself, and it flopped. So, really positioning yourself, again, as someone who can offer value rather than offering video, completely changes everything.
Yeah. So how do
the client gets something
that?
better out of it in the end?
Yeah.
Really, we're here to help. It can be tempting for the client to say, "Oh no, I can take that idea and do it myself." But if you don't help them understand your value, they get worse results in the end.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so that first key thing is about not offering all your creative ideas and your best work, your best thinking up front in that first meeting. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. You keep it focused on the client. You keep it focused on asking good questions to diagnose their problems and maintaining that doctor frame. Remember, you're there to diagnose. Any doctor who just immediately prescribes something and gives away their ideas and a prescription immediately not only loses trust, but also isn't actually going to help the patient to the best of their ability. And in doctor terms, it's called malpractice. So what we need to make sure that we're doing is first diagnosing, listening, understanding what the challenges are. And then when we come to prescribing, typically in the second conversation, and putting forward our ideas, this is the bit where we think about what can we incorporate into our offering that is low cost to us, but high perceived value to the client. What are the other things that are going to help them get results? So a few examples of things that I would include, first and foremost, it's always that creative aspect. It's that creative thinking, the ideas. So, I mean, this is the one piece that every single person listening to this can definitely incorporate, which is that thinking with how are you going to help them solve this problem? What ideas have you got? And how are you going to come up with a solution? Now, the other pieces worth considering are things like your research. So again, a topic that we covered a lot on previous episodes, but your research into your client's business, into their market, and crucially, into their audience. Does that make sense? So if you're actually spending the time to really understand the client's business and to actually research their audience, how much better do you think the results are going to be for that client, given that you've done a whole lot of extra research?
Yeah, it's been funny. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I've been watching Mad Men again. And, I used to imagine myself as Don Draper coming to the client with a beautiful idea and a beautiful deck. And how could they not love this? But that's the side I used to see. But watching it again, it's interesting. It makes me realize that they actually spent a lot of time on research. They spent a lot of time going out there, getting as much information they can to be able to create that one beautiful tagline or whatever. So this is essentially switching from the presentation mode, which is the exciting bit, or which many of us kind of imagine, to all of the steps that run up to that presentation mode to find out the most valuable thing for your client. And it may not be a feature documentary. It may not be a giant video idea that you might have in mind. It may be something that you can create in a few hours or in a few days without even picking up a camera that actually is worth tens of thousands of pounds to them.
Yeah, I love the Don Draper analogy. And I think that that's a really good point, which is that they produce amazing visuals and they get great results for their clients. But like 90% of it is about the research and understanding the business, understanding the audience. And that's something that you can build in as an offering in two ways. One is you can do a paid research process. So you can separate the two pieces. You've got your main production and deliverables, and then you've got a paid research process, and you could be charging $5,000-$10,000 plus just for the research process. And then you stage it. So that you do that bit and then you move into the main production afterwards. So that's one way of doing it. The other is just to package it all together and say that key part of your offering is research. And this is what it looks like, and this is why we do it. And you can use it as something that separates you, gives you more differentiation from everyone else in the market, because who are you more likely to trust? The person who's just going to shoot an edit and say, yep, we can go tomorrow, we'll pick up a camera, or the people who say they're going to measure twice and cut once?
So we've met the clients, we've learned lots about their problems and their challenges. We have lots of information. And then how do we start using what we've learned to create an offer that is high value to them, low cost to us? What are some examples of these kind of offers?
Gotcha. Yeah. So there are lots of different ways that you can incorporate your research into the offer. But I think the main thing is to think about how are you going to use that research to create a better product at the end of the day. And it starts with understanding, if we're talking about video, who is this video for, first and foremost? What are they thinking? What keeps them up at night? What are their main points, pain points and challenges? What are their dreams, aspirations, and outcomes? And then we're building a video or any deliverable around that. So it's something that lays the foundation for everything that you will create. And it's also something that you can start incorporating AI into this process as well. I've been doing a lot of research calls with people, and I take the research, I plug it into AI, and then I use it as a way to generate ideas and find key pieces of language that I can then incorporate into the deliverables. I'll give you a more solid example of this in a little bit, but that's the key. If you imagine you end up with a ChatGPT or Claude project that's stacked full of research across the market, that's going to give you a huge advantage. And then for each client, you have another project which is stacked full of key information about their business. Then you can go about creating videos, LinkedIn posts, social media outputs, pretty much anything for them that is inevitably going to outperform anything else that anyone else would do without that level of research.
Right. So this is kind of your scripting foundation in a way. It's really because otherwise we're just going in thinking we know what's best for them, and that's when you get all these. You do a shoot, you do an edit, you get 17 revisions. You do another shoot, you get 17 revisions. So is that kind of what you're talking about, kind of getting just like a really strong foundation to then
Yeah,
launch off of, especially kind of in the age of AI? But you're just using AI as a tool, not as the key driver, right? We're using the information first.
exactly. That's exactly it. So, yeah, just the shoot, edit, and then do 15 revisions is a result of a lack of understanding. So, the more time you spend measure twice, cut once, the more time you spend doing that, the less revisions you're going to have on the other end, which is better for your business, but also the better results you're going to create for the client, because it's deeply rooted in a better understanding of their business, their goals, and their ideal customer, assuming that the video is for a specific customer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I know that pain. I've done it so many times when we get so excited. We think we know what the client wants. We think we're going to create something beautiful, and then it comes around to the edit, and they go, "What? What is this?" And it's such a shock, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are some other really important things that we can include that are ultimately high perceived value to the client and low cost to us to produce. Things like pre-production planning. You've got all of your scripting and storyboards pre-visualizing the project before you ever pick up a camera. That's something that not everyone does, but can massively improve the client experience. And a great example is the pre-visualizing, because that's something that will give them a really clear idea of what they're going to get and increase chances of success. Then you've also got things like landing pages, for example. So I often find that when I'm creating a video for a client, their website or their landing page isn't very good. And so if I was to create something for them and put it on what they've currently got, I can tell already that it's not going to perform well. But landing pages now, in the day of AI, are so easy to produce. You can use something that you prompt together within an hour or two that is going to be significantly better than what they've currently got. A couple of other thoughts as well. You've got things like social and video content guides. This is something that I've started including in my offering as well. So again, having done the research and understood their business and the market, I put together a guide that gives them the tools they need to be able to perform better with their socials, and even give them the tools to be able to continue doing things themselves. So they don't have to be fully dependent on me. Sometimes that's part of the offering. It's really about translating your expertise into the most valuable format for the client. And then last but not least, one of the things that I always incorporate into my offering are the regular strategy calls. Because what is better than checking in with your client every couple of weeks to make sure that what you've done for them is performing, that they're getting the results that they want? And the best part about all of this is that you're always positioning yourself as being there as a valuable partner and someone to help them with whatever challenges they've got coming up next. And this is key to increasing the lifetime value of a customer, making yourself more valuable to them, and always being there to help with whatever they've got going on. So the strategy calls are a piece that I incorporate into all of my proposals because, again, low cost to me, but very high perceived value to the client.
Yeah, and that I'll comment on two of those sections. I think giving people guides has been incredibly powerful for me. One example is one client that I do one video a week for them for social, and then I've given them kind of script generator prompts for ChatGPT, so they can actually create videos themselves. This means we are now posting 3 videos a week, one highly produced, one from me, and then 2 from them, and they are getting phenomenal results, hundreds of thousands of views, many more sales. They're seeing more increase than many other people I've worked with, just because they're using some of these guides. So massive value for them, and they don't need to pay me more, at least for now. Then the strategy calls are incredibly valuable. Again, just 30 minutes, an hour of your time. But you're consistently showing the client that you are getting them results. Like, what else can we do to get you more results? And each of these calls is an opportunity to potentially come up with a new solution which they can invest in the future. So yes, 2 very valuable things that can significantly increase results.
Yeah. And the thing I love about this whole process is that it forces you to think about more ways that you can help them. And we're not just boxing ourselves into being video is the only solution. For me, this started a chain of thoughts over the years. I went from I only shoot and edit to, well, now I produce videos, to now I produce the results for the clients, to now how can I solve bigger problems, in turn, create bigger solutions and ultimately charge more as well, while creating more value for the client. And these are all the best questions to be asking yourself when you're putting together a proposal and coming up with solutions, because it's a win-win for everyone. And I think that the first thing for me was it was just about giving myself permission. And I think this is what I got from reading Blair Enns' book early on, was giving myself permission that it's okay to charge for these things and have them as part of my process rather than I just shoot video and the video is the only output and the only result that I get for them.
Yeah, something I've really learned in this process is the video. It's like charging only for video is almost like charging for like a living room without building a house. Like if somebody wants a house and you're just giving them a living room, that's not very useful, you know. Learning how to do everything around the video, you know, you already know how to create great videos. Learning how to do everything around the video, the distribution, the marketing, the research, the messaging, just means that you can create phenomenal results and charge significantly more in much less time. So that being said, I know some people out there, and this was me a while ago, would say, you know, I just want to shoot. I It's so nice, you know, clients just call me, I go out and shoot, and that's all I do. That's my craft. That's what I'm great at. Why spend time learning new things like this stuff that isn't to do with shooting in what could be said, rather than just focusing on my craft and becoming a better shooter, buying more camera gear, upping my day rate, you know, that kind of thing. You know, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely that's a possibility. If you want to just focus on shooting or editing and working as a technician, then that's great. But you'll be working with production companies and maybe agencies, and you'll always be limited by how much time you have in the day and how much time you have in the year. And so if you want to be a technician, all good, but you're also going to be struggling in a heavily commoditized market as more and more competition comes in and AI makes the whole process easier and cheaper. But this is really for the people who want to focus on scaling a business that's going B2B. So who want to focus on helping other businesses, creating more financial freedom in your life and creating better results for people, and ultimately just opens a lot of doors along the way. And it's not just financial freedom, but it's creative freedom as well, because the more control you have over the process and the more you're involved in the whole client production from, you know, the first contact through to delivery, the more options it gives you, the more creative freedom that you have in terms of what parts of the process you want to get involved in. And then further down the line, you start to delegate and you scale a business that can ultimately run without you. So they're two very different paths that are in front of you there.
But yeah, it's wild, and now that I'm going down the strategist path, I keep seeing things the tough side of staying as a supplier technician. Yesterday, I was looking for a new editor. I was looking to expand my editing team. And so I went. So this is a big warning to all editors, honestly, people who are in the UK or people who are in countries that charge relatively high day rates. No matter how good you are, um, I could not believe when I went on Fiverr yesterday. Um, I sent a message to about 20 different editors and they all responded within 2 minutes. And they, from their reels, from their show reels, from their messaging, from their websites, they were all strong. They were all talented editors. So if I can send a message and get 20 different options within 5 minutes, like where does that position you as a skilled craftsman? Like
It's
where does that,
tough. Yeah.
how do you compete with that kind of competition? Whereas if you position yourself as a person who solves high value problems and learn really what those problems are and learn how to solve them, then you're just in a much stronger position in the long term. And that's not even going into AI. right? That's just people you're competing with across the world who may or may not be as talented as you. But essentially, it's like a market where people can just pick and choose. Why would they choose you versus 10,000 others?
Yeah, editing especially is going to be so commoditized with AI. It's just going to come down to who has the best workflow, the best AI workflow, who's going to be able to, take a dozen different projects at once, plug them into a system, and then get outputs that outperform what most people are doing on Fiverr and the lot lower end of the market. The higher end of the market, I think there will always be space for the best of the best, for the top 10%. But AI will just replace most other people. And from the client's perspective, if they can't really tell the difference between really, really good and just good, they will just go for good because it's cheaper.
Mm, yeah, it's tough out there.
So on that note of getting cheaper, I think a really important point about all of this is that people value things a lot more that they pay for than what they get for free. And when you include a whole bunch of things for free in your proposal and in your offering, the client they may not even notice it. And if they do, they won't value it. The things that people pay for, they will show up as better clients. They will put in more time and energy and resources. They'll allocate their team members to be more involved. And it's directly proportional to the amount you charge as well. So if you're doing something for $1,000 versus $50,000, the client who's paying $50,000 will be at your beck and call. They will pick up the phone. They will send over the assets. They will designate team members to be working with you like round the clock because they value what it is that you're doing for them. And that all begins with doing a good diagnosis and identifying problems that actually matter to them so that in turn you can charge for things they really care about.
So when you say working for free, you kind of in the scenario of like a spec commercial or something versus a paid case study. Essentially
Yeah,
the same things, but the paid case study, essentially you have one phone call where you really learn what to do, and then what the client's challenges actually are, and then that actually opens up a lot more budget, right? So the difference of a spec commercial where you just go out and shoot what you think they might want, lots of time, lots of money, lots of effort, versus one 1 hour phone call, or maybe two 1 hour phone calls, can unlock much more.
exactly. That's the issue with spec commercials is that even if you create something amazing for a potential client, they won't value it because they haven't been involved in the process and they haven't paid for it. So
Oh,
very, very rare that a spec commercial works out.
I'd like to share a really good example of this. I had a great call with somebody yesterday. I'd love to share the brand, but I'm not going to. But basically, a plant-based supplement company. They're great. They're mission-driven. They've been around the US about 15 years, and now they're breaking into Europe. They found that, and no offense to any people from Germany here watching, I'm sharing the information from this client.
Can't wait
So
to hear this.
yeah, this is fascinating to me. So I'm all about story-driven, mission-driven content, right? Works really well in the US, works really well in the UK. What they have found, people in Germany do not care about story, at least not their prospects. They want science, they want stats, they want data, they want, is this going to work for me? They don't care about the story. So let's imagine I'm a young filmmaker, or I'm a filmmaker, and I'm like, okay, I love this brand. I'm going to make a spec commercial. It's about story, it's emotional, it's beautiful. And no matter how good it is, the client's going to turn around and be like, but for us, Germany, like that's our biggest market. They don't care about that. So no matter how good something is, if you don't know their problem, you don't know their challenge, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's just not
that's
going to
so
work.
interesting. Yeah, making if you just go and make ads for a business and you don't fully understand their audience, there's a good chance that you could produce something that looks amazing but just falls flat because you've missed that key piece of research and understanding.
And funnily enough, especially for an ad, if you're doing a story or a short film or something beautiful and emotional, that's one thing. But ads are all about results. If someone's going to put millions of pounds into something and it has to give 2, 3, 4, 5 million pounds back, spec commercials, I don't know, man. I think that might be a thing of the past.
And next time you're doing a proposal and you're talking about why you have a comprehensive research process, you can use that exact story. Maybe not when speaking to a German market, but for everyone else, you can use that exact same story to illustrate why your process is the way it is.
That's a very good point.
So I did mention earlier that I talk about one of the core tools that I use that is the epitome of high perceived value to the client and low cost to me, which is the brand voice guide. And this is something that I've really been doubling down on in the last year and been getting amazing results with. And one good example of this, rather than for me, actually was for one of our students, Ben, who went through the brand voice guide process with one of his clients, produced the video off the back of that, and she broke down in tears as a result. And that was because the video spoke so well to her audience, and it was in her voice, and it just captured everything about her in the exact way that she didn't even originally believe was possible. So I thought that was such a nice result, demonstrating understanding and then that manifesting as something that just had a profound impact on this business owner. It's also something that I've included in every project recently. The 25K paid case study that I talked about in previous episodes, that was the first step, is the brand voice guide. So what it looks like in practice is you have your first call with the client, diagnosis, the second call, which is the proposal, and then assuming that you're moving forward and working together, the third call is the brand voice guide, which is essentially like an onboarding process where you sit down for 90 minutes to 2 hours. For me, it's taken almost 90 minutes every single time, and ask them a series of about 30 questions. And the questions are super tailored, or you could think about them as being reverse engineered to get all of the answers that we need in order to be able to produce the exact outputs that we're going to create for them. So it starts with, I've got them in front of me here, so I can mention a few of the questions. Like, I'll start with things like, in your own words, describe your business in 30 seconds. So I want to understand, how do they talk about themselves when it's just one-to-one, when not their marketing spiel, not what they put on their website, but what do they actually say to people when they're describing their business? What's their mission? And then who's their primary audience? What are their main pains and frustrations and fears? What do you do better or differently than competitors? What do you stand against in your industry? So about 30 questions like this that help capture everything that I need to know about the brand and the business to be able to create all the assets, whether it be video or websites, or even there are so many things now that I'm just realizing are possible as time goes on and as AI has become better and better, like producing a landing page or a website in an hour or two. But things like social content guides, I've been plugging the answers to the brand voice guide into AI, and it's producing about a year's worth of LinkedIn content for some of my clients, which is amazing. And the key thing is that we're using really good source information. We're asking really, really good questions. We're getting, not just one-line answers, but we're getting paragraph answers that we can then plug in to get much better results for our clients. And I think that's something, if you started using it as well, Will?
Yeah, it's been fantastic for me. The biggest challenge that this process helps me overcome is, one, having something, a voice. You're capturing the DNA, you're capturing the voice of this brand, the voice of this person. So then everything you create in the future is exactly who they are, exactly what they want to do, speaking to the exact audience they're trying to reach, overcoming the exact goal they're trying to overcome. And we can always go back to that whenever we are creating content. The other massive challenge that I've seen is really common across lots of different brands, especially as brands are growing from one stage to the next, is consistency. Having a voice that can go across the company, that can go across all the different marketing. So anytime they need to check in, anytime they need to come up with an idea, anytime they need to talk to anybody else in the company, they can share this PDF, this document that they can easily create content from beyond us. And I think that's where the real value is. And I think that's where it's totally reasonable to charge 10, 15, 20K just for this process, because this is a wildly valuable document that will save them dozens of hours of time over the future and really help them get the results that they want. Just this
Yeah.
document.
So the minimum I've charged for it is 5K, and the most has been around 15, 20K. And yeah, in itself, it's super valuable. In itself, it could just be the paid research process that is the first milestone, or you can build it into your wider offering. And it's something that I've got more and more comfortable and better at pitching and presenting on those second proposal calls as I see the results that this process gets. And like Ben's story, just also every client I've worked with has loved it. And it's such a easy way to over deliver when you start bringing AI into the picture as well. And in our community, we keep seeing new and different ways that our students are using the brand voice guide that I hadn't even thought of before. So yeah, I think it's very exciting, and the biggest reward of all is just seeing clients' reactions to it.
But
So
yeah, it's so fun when they really feel like they understand, and when you produce content that I barely get notes anymore. I barely get revisions on my edits because that's just dealt with. That's set. And when I look at clients I didn't do this process with versus clients I did do this process with, the results are just significantly higher. The notes are less, the revisions are less, the process is smoother. You can start building systems that can only take you a few hours and that can gain you thousands of pounds. And most importantly, actually help the client reach their goals much quicker than they would have had if they hadn't been working with you.
yeah, when we talk and think about incorporating AI into our production process, this is the way that excites me. It's not streamlining our entire sales process so everything becomes really impersonal and you're just speaking to a robot, or scripting videos from just whatever ChatGPT thinks a good video script looks like. It's doing this. It's taking that like foundational information from the client, getting really, really good source material, and then plugging it into AI and then seeing what outputs that you can create. So
Well,
yeah,
that's it.
there's
If AI is a megaphone, it's only as good as what you put into it, right?
yeah,
And this is what you
exactly.
can put in that's actually going to work.
Yeah. Ultimately, what you want to do, you would just want to become invaluable to the client. You want to become their best resource and their partner, which in turn means that you get better results for them and they want to keep on working with you for a much longer time. And ultimately, you then don't need to get as many clients. You can just focus on having those 10 ideal clients each year who you're very close with, who you get great results with. And that doesn't come from just shooting and editing video, because the client always views that as a commodity, and they'll ultimately, whether they're thinking it now or whether they start thinking it in a year, they'll be thinking about, okay, who can I get that's cheaper? But if you have this incredible resource and you know more about them than anyone else, then you become irreplaceable.
In the old days, I would spend all of my time and resources learning how to be a better filmmaker, learning how to tell better stories, learning how to engage with audiences better, learning how to use better lenses, better camera techniques, better camera gear, spending thousands, tens of thousands a year upgrading myself so that I could charge bigger day rates and get bigger clients. Eventually, I hit a ceiling. Eventually, that ran out. This process that I've learned over the past couple of years, things like the brand voice guides, real research, real value-based pricing, real value for the client, has just changed everything forever. And in 2026, this is what is going to separate you from the 10,000 people on Fiverr to the very few people who are actually making genuine progress in this industry.
Yeah, well said. It's very hard to scale a video business on just video deliverables alone. You got to start thinking outside the box and how you can deliver additional value to your clients. So we're going to leave it there today. Thank you for your time and attention and listening. And if you want more information about all of these things, I'll leave a link to the 8 frameworks below. So each of these episodes relates to one of the frameworks in that guide, and you can get a lot more information and how to use them through the link below. So thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.